So you all have the press release, so I just have a couple of thoughts that I just wanted to share off at the front, and then I can just take a few questions from you, okay? So 5 years ago, we passed a charter revision with a bipartisan, unanimous action by the county legislature that was actually under the control of the Republican Party at the time, with a Republican majority. We passed this charter revision in a way that allowed us to create programs to bring help to people in our community who needed the help the most. It allowed us to create a minority and women business enterprise program that helped to put tens of millions of dollars into minority and women-owned businesses who are hiring hundreds of people in our community, who are the lifeblood of our economy here and are finding success day in and day out here. It helped us to create an ASL interpreting program at the airport so our residents who are deaf and hard of hearing can access basic services like catching their flight on time and be able to utilize the airport. It helped us create an economic program for our service-disabled veterans who need our help the most to, again, find success in our economy. And now at a time when people, once again, are struggling. We're through the pandemic, but we're finding these economic struggles again. The Trump administration is attempting to make it worse. The actions that the Trump administration are taking today isn't about policy, it's about politics. And I am not going to stand for it. The politics, I said months ago in my State of the County address, that I will not allow chaos to take over in Monroe County because of what the Trump administration is doing. And the certifications that they're now requiring on these grants, such as the FAA grants that we're here to talk about today at the airport, are just that. It's their attempt to insert politics where politics doesn't belong, and it's an attempt to insert chaos. So we're going to stand up and say no. So what Monroe County has done is we joined, once again, in a bipartisan coalition with other municipalities across the country to stand up and say this is unconstitutional, this is wrong, and that the programs that the Trump administration are trying to dismantle are programs that are literally helping, especially here in Monroe County, are actually being run the right way for the right reasons, that are helping people who need the help the most and have been incredibly successful. So instead of doing what the Trump administration is demanding us to do, we decided to join with these municipalities and file a proactive suit to declare what they're trying to do unconstitutional, because we believe that it is. And so with that, I can take any questions that you might have. Yeah. Millions of dollars. So we have estimates ranging, I believe, from $8 to $10 million in airport grants that they're trying to hold up in exchange for us dismantling these programs that we don't believe they have the authority to require us to dismantle.
So reading through the lawsuits, an interesting portion of it is that the executive orders that the Trump administration has put up actually seem to be somewhat in conflict with existing federal laws.
That's correct.
You know, it begs the question that 3.5 years from now, we have a different president, we have a different administration in charge. If you follow the rules now, are you now violating the laws in 3.5 years? What do you do in between? What do you do?
That's why we need judicial intervention. You're asking the exact right question. That's why we need judicial intervention, because you're absolutely right. And that's what makes what's happened here so different, right? Because we're seeing certifications over the last several months, right? And you're seeing it on TV across the country. We're not the only municipality that's filed for judicial intervention here, right? But what's happened here, though, is that what they'll say is, you know, you can't have a program that's in violation of the Civil Rights Act. Well, we don't believe we have any programs that are in violation of the Civil Rights Act. But then when they go and define things as a violation of the Civil Rights Act that are not violations of the Civil Rights Act, and then require you to give away your ability to defend yourself, and then what makes this even as outrageous as it is they're now actually putting criminal penalties on the table for what you're doing. And that's outrageous because they know what they're doing is wrong, right? So you know when the Trump administration is doing this and they're escalating their rhetoric, and they're escalating it now to even put the prospect of criminality into what a municipality is doing, you know what they're doing is wrong. So what we're asking for is judicial intervention, because we as a government, I cannot, as a county executive here, give up our government's ability to defend itself as well. And that's what's also included in the certification. If you read through it, it's giving up the government's ability to not only make legal determinations based on how the courts have already ruled, of what's legal and constitutional, but it's also asking us to give up our affirmative defenses, which is not something that I can do.
Have you had any conversations with the other municipalities who also filed, or with state, federal representatives?
Yeah, so I've talked to other local elected officials here to let them know what we were facing and what we were doing, and found broad support honestly for the action that we're taking today. I've had conversations with other government leaders across the state over the last several months as we've seen these types of actions by the Trump administration. I mean, they've been going after universities and colleges. They've been going after governments in different fashions, you know. And this is one that came to us where we said, okay, enough is enough. Like, we can't. Monroe County is not going to be put in a position where we're either going to lose millions of dollars in infrastructure dollars that go to our airport, or dismantle perfectly legal programs that are constitutional, that we're allowed to have, that are actually working, and that were created in a bipartisan, unanimous way. And I can't even stress that enough. So where you're seeing this politics and chaos play out across the country, that's not how we do things here. We do things in a thoughtful, responsible way. I mean, I was just at an event a month or two ago with the Rochester Chamber of Commerce for minority and women-owned business enterprises, celebrating the work that they've done. And because of our certification program, we had hundreds of businesses there that have leveraged tens of millions of dollars, not just government dollars, but they're now created this ecosystem where they're contracting with each other, they're contracting with other companies, and they're growing here. And that's part of what our economy is based on, is the growth of small businesses. And it was all done in a bipartisan, unanimous way. So I can't stress that enough, is that we do things here in Monroe County in a thoughtful, responsible way. That's not what's happening in Washington. What the Trump administration is doing is trying to dismantle that in the name of politics.
So the Trump administration has said, I mean, so while there are many worthy programs and everything going on, the Trump administration has said that when it comes to any job related to aircraft or safety, anything that would do with flying, that it should not be a DEI hire. It should be solely based on who's the best person for the job.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what positions there might be at the airport that would involve those types.
Yeah, and not from the county, no. So Monroe County, you know, we operate the airport as our job. So we do, you know, the basic function of the airport. The airlines run all those pieces of it, or their contractors. But that's not even what they're targeting here. So we're one of municipalities, because airports are owned different ways. So, you know, in Monroe County, we own the airport, and there's an airport authority that provides the oversight. But not every community is like that. Sometimes they're handled by like a nonprofit corporation or something like that. Here, it's owned by Monroe County, so it has to fall under the Monroe County Charter and follow the rules. And in our charter, we have the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Department, and so it follows there. And so what they're really attacking here is saying, okay, because in 2020 you guys created a Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Department that does the minority women-owned businesses, it does service disabled veteran businesses, it does ASL interpretation, that those things by those very nature are wrong, and you shouldn't be doing those programs, so we're going to take this infrastructure money away from you. So what we're saying is, no, we're not going to do that. You don't have the authority to tell us we can't do that. And so that's what we're asking for the a judicial intervention to rule. Because that's a good question. So we have a grant authorization or a submission in front of us now that's due within the next couple of weeks. And so our legal team reviewed what the updated language in that grant, and those grant documents said, and the language was recently updated to include the certification that we're objecting to.
What kinds of improvements would that go towards at the airport?
It's the dollars that are coming first, and then the airport. But it's all things that that passengers would benefit from, jetway improvements, things like that. Yeah, and it's also what's giving it. We have a great airport. I mean, if you think about what's been going on at the airport, if you've been there and see the improvements that have been taking place there, our ridership at the airport is up, I think, 7 or 8% year over year. From this point last year, it's been a consistent increase. And so the airport's been doing really well. So we're really happy to receive those grants, but a lot of what pays for that airport has been a lot of state funding and a lot of federal funding that comes through. And so we would routinely accept grants like this, just like we routinely receive a lot of state and federal grants, because that's what counties do, right? Counties are, in many ways, a pass-through for state and federal dollars that we then invest in the community, and the airport is one of those.
Could this hurt current renovations happening at the airport?
No, to my understanding, those are all paid for, and actually they're almost complete. The next couple weeks they'll be done. Yep.
Have you all been in direct contact with the Trump administration about this, or is this your first step?
This is our first step.
Have they sent any letters or anything, anything?
No, just a certification.
Have the courts looked at any similar situations like this, and how have they ruled it, you know?
I'm not aware of a ruling on this exact situation, on this exact language that we're objecting to, which is why we joined and joined our own suit with the other municipalities. But there are similar suits across the country. So there are other airports, and municipalities that have filed for injunctions, for a host of different reasons, very similar reasons. But this is the first one we saw that was on this narrow FAA requirement.
I know you mentioned that this county law that went into effect roughly 5 years ago
Yeah.
had bipartisan support. I
Okay.
don't know if you talked to current legislators now. Does this lawsuit have bipartisan support here in the county?
I talked to a number of legislators yesterday, haven't talked to them all, but I know it has support.
Best case scenario, what are we hoping for?
Best case scenario, what I'm hoping for is, like I said, is for there to be judicial intervention, a stay on this requirement, and to a court to rule in, as courts have ruled, that municipalities are, what we've done here is constitutional and it's in line with federal and state laws. And we're just looking for a judge to agree with the interpretation that it's the way it's always been interpreted, and to allow these programs to continue without withholding federal funding.
So bigger picture.
Yep,
just
sure.
Looking at the language of what the Trump administration's executive orders, what they are attempting to do, I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. I mean, what do you think the motivation here is? What do you think the effect will be? And what's your response to it?
The motivation is politics, and the effect is a couple things. One is chaos. I think in many ways that's the point. And the second effect is that it's going to hurt real people. When you step back and say, oh, it's a DEI policy. What's a DEI policy? You even said DEI hires in an earlier question. What is our DEI initiatives? Our DEI initiatives are helping minority and women business-owned enterprises. It's helping our service-disabled veteran businesses. It's helping people who are deaf or hard of hearing being able to access basic services in our community. That's what our programs are. That's why it passed locally. Our programs were done in a bipartisan fashion between the legislature and the administration. And so this is going to have a negative impact on all of those people who it protects and serves. But then it has a bigger impact. So when you go after the hundreds of businesses that are finding success, that are hiring people because they were certified as an MWBE or they're owned by a service-disabled vet, that's going to have then a cascading effect on the economy as well. And so that's why you have to stand up and say, no, enough is enough. We're not going to do that here. I've chosen to lead Monroe County in a different way over the last 5 years. We do things in a thoughtful, collaborative manner, right? We don't just go after people for politics. We try to collaborate. We try to bring people together. That's not what this is. This is going after people because of who they are. And we're just not going to do that here.
Are there alternative sources of funding if the grant industry is not there?
There isn't. That's the problem. So part of the problem here is that we rely on these funds. And if you look at the county government, the county budget, I'll just give you more than you need to know about that. But it's a lot of what we receive is state and federal dollars, right? And that's what counties really do. A large portion of what we do is carry out state and federal mandates and state and federal programs. That's why you oftentimes hear county executives say, 90% of our budget's mandated, right? That's what we do. And so now that they're trying to withhold the funding for things we're still required to do, we're going to run an airport. Now they're going to withhold the funding for running the airport. That's not right. And so we have to take steps like this. And like I said, I think we're going to be successful. because courts have already ruled on these issues. And that's what makes this so troubling. But also, I would point out, is that our reading of this is that as part of certifying that you don't have programs that are in violation of the law, they're telling you you have programs that are in violation, but that you can't defend yourself. They're telling you can't defend yourself. And if you try, now with all this, you're facing some kind of criminal liability. That's ramping things up in a way I don't think we've ever seen here before. But we're not going to do that. And so across the country, like I said, municipalities have been filing similar lawsuits over the last several months. They've been successful. There's been stays. You see them on the news on a lot of these because, again, even the courts are looking at this and saying, okay, this is politics. This isn't policy. And in this lawsuit, what I draw your attention to, too, is it's bipartisan. There are Republican-led municipalities and Democratic-led municipalities that are all standing up and saying, no, we can't do this. We're not going to stand for this. So, anything else?
The larger issue of what the Trump administration is doing, even though it's not necessarily overseeing the airport,
Mm-hmm.
when they're looking at the control towers, the pilots, and this
Yeah.
whole DEI, who's the most qualified, or should we do DEI hiring?
They're going after a group of people because of who they are, and that's just wrong. And they're just going after a group of people because of who they are, what the color of their skin is. That's wrong. It's immoral. And I think most of the country agrees with that and sees that. And that's why they're losing in court so often, right? Because even the courts are standing up and saying it's wrong. And it's not just even Democrats who are saying it. It's Democrats and Republicans are saying that's wrong. But I have a responsibility here in the county to protect the county and to protect the 750,000 people who live here. And that's what we're doing with this lawsuit.
Just real quick though,
Yeah.
Besides the airport, are there other areas in the county that this could affect?
This one's narrowly focused towards our FAA grant, but obviously we receive grants, our community development block grant funding. I would expect certifications to be updated there as well to have similar language to this. So that's another example of a program that could be affected. To my understanding, it's not affected yet, but I would assume we're going to see updated language like this to most federal grants.
And why should the average citizen be concerned about?
Because it's going to impact them. So this is the other thing that I think actually went to your point earlier too, is why does this matter too? It's everybody always thinks too when you watch TV and the news and you see all these things roll out. Well, that affects somebody else, right? That doesn't affect me. It affects somebody else. Here you're saying no, it affects you, right? If you use the airport, this will directly affect you. If you do business with a minority or women-owned enterprise or a service-disabled-owned enterprise, if you know someone who's deaf or hard of hearing, if you know anybody, DEI, let me further, Wendy, go back to the question you asked. When you think about diversity, equity, inclusion, what we're really missing a lot of times is the word inclusion, right? DEI isn't about excluding somebody to the benefit of somebody else. It's about including everybody so that everybody in your community has an opportunity to thrive and to succeed. And just because you're helping to support with a certification program a woman-owned business or a minority-owned business or a certified or a service-disabled veteran-owned business doesn't mean you're taking something away from somebody else. You're including them in the marketplace, in the free economy, to give everybody a chance for success.
Get the Rochester First streaming app today for everything you love from News 8 On Demand, plus exclusive shows you won't see anywhere else. Search ROC and download for free on Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV.